only did I read good books, but I read more books this month than I read last month. Hello, my lovely friend. I'm Margaret, and I'm coming at you with my November wrap-up. Yes, I am so happy with the way November went. I'm not even kidding. Like, I had a good reading month in November, guys. Now, first I'm going to mention the most important book that I finished in November, and technically it was in December, but whatever. I did most of it in November. It is my book, which means I will have much more time to read next month, thank the Lord. I'll link that vlog up above where you can see me kind of freaking out and having fun finally being done with this draft. Praise Jesus. In the month of November, I read 7 books. One of those was a historical fiction. 5 of those were fantasy of some sort, and one of those was, what was it? Sci-fi. I read 3 5-star books, 2 4-star books, 1 3-star book, and 1 2-star book. That's gonna be fun to talk about. I read some chunkers last month, let me tell you. And I had some unexpected favorites. How this works is I'm going to tell you which books I read, and then we will discuss how that compares to last month's TBR and which books from last month's TBR are being shelved and which books are being moved to next month's TBR. I've already finished one book in December, and I'm halfway through another one, and it feels so wonderful. The first book I finished in November was The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. I finished this for Demigods Anonymous. It's a read-along that I'm doing with Min Kobayashi and Kenzie Lee T. We are rereading the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, not Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. I only mention that because every time someone calls it Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, I feel like I'm having an aneurysm. This is the second book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. It's about, Percy Jackson, who finds out in the first book that he is actually the son of one of the Greek gods and a mortal woman, making him a demigod, and a whole bunch of crap happens from there. He's being accused of things that he hasn't done, and he has to go on a quest to basically keep all of Olympus from crumbling and taking Western civilization with it. No pressure! Heck of a thing to put on a 12-year-old. Anyways, he is back with his friends Annabeth and Grover in this book, and they are once again trying to keep the bad guys from destroying Olympus with their nasty, nasty schemes. I give this 5 stars because I love this series, and every single book in this series is a 5-star book. They didn't start out that way, but the more I read them, the more I appreciate them. The more you read Rick Riordan's work, the more you really have an appreciation for how clever his writing is and how many details he is able to put in, and how much foreshadowing there is. It's so, I love reading his books. I also love reading them because he wrote them for his son, who had ADHD and dyslexia, and he wrote that so that his son would feel seen in fiction. So I think that is wonderful and fantastic, and I lost my place. Now, there is a little bit of, there's some dated language and dated concepts in this first series. He's much more inclusive in the next Heroes of Olympus series, but in this one, there are some places that, you're like, I don't feel like that would be okay today, and you, knowing him as an author, it's something that he has recognized, and you see get better in his books as he tries to be a little bit more inclusive and kinder. That aside, I love this book. I love the adventure. I love the new characters. He introduces such wonderful I can't tell you who they are, but he introduces, wonderful new characters in this. I love this really focuses on friendship. I really love how he reimagines Greek mythology. This is basically just a fun, fresh retelling of the Odyssey, and I just love how he adapts the different mythologies. The next book I finished was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Cassidy is a 12-year-old girl, I believe it is, and she can see ghosts. She has the ability, because she has had a near-death experience, of being able to pull back the veil and go into the world of the ghosts, and her best friend actually just so happens to be a ghost. At the beginning of the book, Cassidy comes home to find out that her parents are going to be doing a ghost hunting show. They're very into the myths and things about the different ghosts. They kind of are ghost hunters. They are going to one of the most haunted cities in the world, Edinburgh, Scotland, and they're going to be doing a kind of tour of the various ghost locations in Edinburgh, talking about the ghosts that inhabit it and the legends behind those. And Cassidy gets to tag along, and when she's there, she finds out that she might not be the only person that is like her. I gave this book 4 stars. If you know me, you know that one of my favorite series is Shades of Magic by Victoria Schwab, so of course I was going to pick this book up right away so that I could read it and experience it. It was a fantastic book. I really liked it. I thought it was a really great, solid middle grade. There was a lot of adventuring going on in this book. I like how she kind of weaves in history along with the ghost. She did a really good job of making myth and legend seem like it could work out to be real. It was a good book. It was entertaining. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It was well written, and it just so many different things tied in, and you can see so many threads that are going to be woven in further books, but it was not one that I was like, yes, I'm going to die without the sequel. which is how I felt after finishing A Gathering of Shadows. The third book that I finished was Counted with the Stars by Connelyn Cassette. It's about Kaya. She is a young Egyptian girl who is a slave in one of the Egyptian households around the time of Exodus, and it basically is just the perspective of Exodus from the eyes of someone who was not one of the Hebrews. It had two things that really like set it up to be a really interesting read and something that I should have loved. It was a reimagining of Exodus from the point of view of someone that we don't usually see. Usually when you're doing a reimagining of Exodus, it's about somebody near Moses. And this was about a girl who had no knowledge of the Hebrew God when she started out, like very little knowledge. And so she's experiencing some of it as she's learning. And then it had an angsty romance because it's her and a Hebrew guy, and so she should have, like, the sparks were flying, there was some animosity. It was a great setup for an enemies to lovers trope, and I love that trope. Fantastic. I just felt there were some serious places where the writing, and I don't know if some of this might be romance as a genre because I don't read a lot of romance, just straight up romance anymore. It wasn't my favorite book of the month. I felt it was a little info dumpy. I do want to continue on with the series because this is her first book and I think that she could get better. But the writing left a little bit to be desired for me. And there would be small moments in the relationship where I was just like, this is kind of not okay. This is kind of not okay. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was inconsiderate of him. So I was just like, So it was not my favorite book of the month. I gave it 2 stars. I'm sorry. I really wanted to like it, and I did really enjoy it, but I was also extremely frustrated by it. Just so frustrated. The fourth book that I finished was Grim Lovelies by Megan Shepherd. This is about a Nook. She is a beastie, which basically she was an animal and she was turned into a human by a witch, only her witch has been found dead in their home. And so she has 3 days to figure out who killed the witch and find someone else to redo the spell so that she and her friends don't get turned back into animals, because she doesn't want that. I really like this. It had a great magic system that I don't feel like I've seen before. Like, it was nuanced in a way that I haven't seen before. The methodology behind it was fascinating and really well thought out. I really liked, like, the adventure aspect of it and the fact that the plot they didn't really sit still. There was always something going on and something that was happening. I did give it 3 stars because I did enjoy it. I was entertained the entire time. I was kept like once it gripped me, it gripped me. The only 2 things that I had to that were kind of detractors were that, number 1, I wasn't sold on the romance. It just kind of was there to be a romance, and I could have, it's one that I could have loved, but I don't feel like it was developed enough for me personally, like what I look for in a romance. It wasn't that. It just didn't develop as well as I would have liked it to. I needed a little more from it in order to be invested in it, and I wasn't invested in it. And then the other thing was, it was a lot of, especially at the beginning, it was kind of telly. Like, there was a lot of, like, it got better as she goes through the book, but there was a lot of telling and not enough showing for me at the beginning of the book. So, but still, I liked it. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars, and I do want to continue on with the series. We'll see. I might get the second book from the library rather than buying it myself, but I'm happy I have it because, look, it's gorgeous and it was a good book. This is the book I've been waiting to talk to you guys about for a while because I did not see this coming at all. Just didn't see it coming. The next book I finished was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Now, listen, I know people have been telling me that book 2 is much better than book 1 because I had kind of a meh reaction to book 1. If it hadn't have been for like one moment towards the end of book 1, I don't know that I would have continued on with this series, and I'm so glad I did. Let me tell you guys. Okay, so I just realized I'm not putting the books behind me, and we need to put the books behind me. Okay, let me talk to you about this book. I've heard things about this series, and so I was going into this like with half of my foot out the door, ready to just like dump it and run, and this turned out to be nothing like what I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be just like kind of barely okay with the stuff that happened and be like, well, they're fairies or whatever kind of, but no, oh my gosh, like, this book gives me such an appreciation because I understand now what she was setting up in A Court of Thorns and Roses. I understand now the juxtaposition that she's setting up. This is about Feyre, by the way, since I haven't mentioned that. It's about Feyre. In the first book, she accidentally kills a fairy guard, and so she has to go and live with the fairies because she now owes them a life debt because she has killed a fae, and according to the contract between the humans and the fae, or like the treaty or whatever it was, if you kill a fae, you have to go and like basically give up your life. The fairy that comes to get her basically defines giving up her life as she's just gonna come and kind of be a part of his court and a part of his estate. And that's where that goes. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I thought it was a very clever Beauty and the Beast retelling, although I kind of felt like it was a waste of a book. But now that I have this book, I do not feel, because I understand now what she was setting up. It's really funny because the character that I was just kind of tepid about, I was like, I'm not really invested in this person because I know they're not going to be a big part of the rest of the series, hopefully. Because you know how Margaret feels about love triangles. If they're not well done, Margaret don't like them. I like a well-done love triangle. I like some Cassie Clare stuff, but like, she's one of the only people that can do a love triangle that has me happy no matter how it ends. I've never seen that before, but that is a completely different story. And so, anyways, this character I was tepid about, I absolutely loathe them. They are sewage. They are sewer sludge. They are the worst person I have ever read. I don't know the last time I disliked a character as much as I dislike a character, but thank goodness we don't have to put up with that much of them. Things I liked about this book. It was such a good romance. Like, listen, I am a sucker for slow burn. I am a sucker for angst, and it had all of this. I am a sucker for people who can't figure out that they have feelings for each other. Sucker for it. The romance was so good. I also really like this world. Like, it is so, like, I didn't get it was a little bit harder to get a grasp on it, but this is a chunkier volume. And so you get a lot more of the different courts and the characters that you're introduced to in this book. I absolutely adore them. These characters are so much fun, and I enjoy reading about them and watching them absolutely be ridiculous. One of my favorite things about this book is how she sets up the different ways that people are protective, and she kind of makes a big difference between someone who's protecting you because they view you as an object and it's something that belongs to them, and someone that protects you because they care about you, but they still have that ability to step back and recognize your agency and recognize that you make your own choices. And I loved that. Okay, that juxtaposition makes like that, it redeems the entirety of A Court of Thorns and Roses. Like, everything that I was like kind of meh about, like, I'm like, okay, this serves a point and a purpose, and it's there for a reason, and to pay off for all of that angst and pining and just in general, just absolute dysfunctional disasterness that you have to deal with. Listen, guys, the payoff for that, I felt, it was so good. I was so happy with it. If you've read the first book and you're kind of like, I'm not sure about this, read the second book. I am a fan of character-driven novels. This is very character-driven. It's not very plot-driven. They don't really, like, do a lot. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because I just was so thoroughly entertained, and just joy came out of my being. Except, listen, guys, I'm gonna tell you, you want the next book when you finish this one. If you find yourself enjoying this book and like being invested in the characters and the plot and what's gonna happen, and you're like me, you're gonna want the next book, because I about imploded when I finished this book and I didn't have the next book. That's enough about my favorite book of the month, clearly. My favorite book of the month wasn't a Percy Jackson book. That is a shocker. Continuing on. I finished these 2 books on the same day, so it did lessen the impact of this next book I'm going to talk about, because I was able to cope with the ending a lot better. The next book that I finished was Archenemies by Marissa Meyer. You guys know this is one of my most anticipated reads of the year. It's a trilogy now. It is also one of the, like, 4 books that I was allowed to buy. Kind of have stuck to that. I will have a haul for you at the end of the year, probably. Listen, my friends, I love this story. It ended better than I thought it was going to. I thought we were going to have just disaster at the end of the book. And there was disaster, but like, it's the kind of disaster that I can deal with. This is the sequel to Renegades, and it's about Nova and Adrian. Adrian is the son of the 2 most prominent renegades. They are the superheroes who basically defeated this group called the Anarchists, who were holding their city of Gatlin, I think it's Gatlin, in kind of just ruling over the city of Gatlin, and nobody liked it. And Nova is the niece of the top anarchist who died fighting the renegades. In the first book, Nova starts out as a supervillain named Nightmare. She touches you and you fall straight to sleep. She also doesn't ever have to sleep. She realizes she has a chance to infiltrate the renegades because they are doing trials to bring new members onto the team because they have different little like groups of teams. Listen. There is a team that we don't like. Poetic justice is served in this book. I'm gonna tell you that. Poetic justice is served, and I was happy with that. But basically, she joins the team, and she ends up joining Adrian's team. And what she doesn't know is they're both living double lives, because she is secretly working for the anarchists, trying to get information so they can take down the renegades. And Adrian is secretly moonlighting as a superhero named the Sentinel. And he's not supposed to be doing that because he is a rogue vigilante, and that is very frowned upon by the council, who basically are the head of the renegades. I loved this book. Again, the romance spoke to my soul. It made me happy. It was complicated and messy, and they are absolute idiots, and that's exactly how I like my romance, apparently. Who am I kidding? My favorite couple is Batman and Catwoman. No one is surprised by this. I really liked how Marissa Meyer reimagines the superhero mythology. I love how you can see kind of like bits and pieces and of like comic book lore that we would recognize. Like, two of these superheroes very much remind me of Superman and Batman. I won't tell you who they are, but they do. But Batman if he had a sense of humor. So basically Nightwing. I really like how she kept the plot moving and how she found ways to complicate things without absolutely destroying any chance. Like, it was like things got complicated, but they didn't get unbelievable, if that makes sense. Now, Nova was a little bit, she was not as smart as she should have been. But that's okay because I love her and people are allowed to make mistakes. I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic, and I really think you should read the series if you haven't read the series. I have one last book for you, and that is For Armies of Fire by Heidi Heilig. This is about Jeddah. She is a young girl living in Chakra Na. Her people have basically been conquered by these people from Aquatan, and the people from Aquatan are clashing with a set of rebels, and Jeddah and her family are just shadow players, and they're trying to survive and make a living and keep people from realizing that Jeddah has a forbidden magic. They are trying to get out of Chakra Na to Aquatan because they believe there's a way to help Jeddah and help her hide her magic in Aquatan. And she runs in with a guy named Leo who offers to help them get out of Chakra Na. This was the month for angsty, ridiculous romance for me. I loved the setup. I loved like the kind of animosity between them because they don't know quite if they can trust each other. I thought that was great. I loved Jeddah as a character. She is a mess and she doesn't make the best choices, but at the same time you always understand why she's making those choices. Like you might be like, maybe if you stop and think that through a little bit, you would make a different choice. But you understand being hasty and being a teenager and all of that. And so I really appreciated that. I really liked the magic system that she created in this. It is, it's a type of necromancy. And I thought that was fantastic. I like how she described it. I liked how she tied it in to what Jeddah does every day. I really thought that she did a fantastic job of building the world and the atmosphere in this book. You were there. You were there. You understood. Like, you could see it in your mind. And I have a hard time a lot of the time picturing things in my mind, like, of the setting. Like, I can see people. I can see facial expressions. I can hear tone of voice when I read. But seeing the setting is a little bit more difficult for me when I read. And this, she just did such a good job of doing that. I did give it 4 stars. I don't recommend the audiobook, though. I'd listen to this as an audiobook. And because it is done in kind of a mixed media format. It's kind of this mix between Jeddah's point of view, which is told in first person, and then the acts of a play. So anything that Jeddah wouldn't necessarily know, but you need to know as the audience, that is put forth as a script for a play. And I thought that was a really interesting, once I figured out that's what she was doing, I thought that was a really interesting way to do it. I don't recommend the audiobook, though, because I wasn't a fan of the narrator all that much. That's not entirely why I took off 1 star, but like, it did have something to do with it. I wasn't a fan of the narrator, and it did take me a while to kind of figure out the mixed media format and why it was mixed media. And I think part of that was because it was an audiobook, but I also think, like, looking at it, it could have been done a little bit better. Still a good book and still fantastic. I still kind of liked the mix mesh, but I do think she maybe went a little overboard with that because there were, like, songs in it, and I'm very specific about, like, singing and I couldn't stand the narrator's singing voice. I just couldn't. I was like, no, thank you, no. But that was the only like negative parts that I listened to as an audiobook, and the format was a little bit weird to figure out at the very beginning. Hold on. Those are the books that I read in November. Are we at November already? Holy crap. Those are the books that I read in November. I really enjoyed. I thought it was such a good reading month. I'm so happy with it. Of the 9 books that I was supposed to read in October, I read 5 of them, so that's more than half. I didn't finish Paper Towns or Catwoman Soul Stealer, and I didn't read In the Afterlight by Alexandra Bracken or Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. Those last 2 I'm going to kind of put to the side for now. I'm just not, like, I have other reading plans in mind, but I am going to finish Catwoman Soul Stealer and Paper Towns by the end of the year. That's going to happen. I'm quite pleased with the fact that I was actually able to stick to my TBR, and I did a pretty good job of sticking to my TBR this month. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. I make videos 2 to 3 times a week about books and writing, and I would love to see your lovely face here on a regular basis. Also, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Links for both of those will be down in the description box below. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!